Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Maryland Public Service Commission's administrative meeting for October the 11th, 2017. Let's begin with our draft minutes from the September 27th meeting. I will move to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Minutes are approved. On to our administrative agenda.
Mr. Chairman, item number 1 is Verizon Maryland LLC filed revised tariff pages proposing to increase rates for business order processing and line charges.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Janice Flynn for item 1. This is a filing by Verizon Maryland revising its tariff to increase rates for business order processing and line charges. These services are classified as Basket 2 Business Basic under Verizon's price cap plan and alternative form of regulation, or A4. Under the A4, the cap for standalone business dial tone lines increases by $2 per year, and the cap on all other Basket 2 service rates increase by 10% per year, regardless of whether Verizon actually increases the rate. Verizon may change rates in Basket 2 at any time, except that no single rate increase may exceed $4 for standalone business dial tone and standalone business local usage in Basket 2, or 20% for any single increase in any other service in Basket 2. Staff has reviewed these tariff revisions and determined that they are permitted under the A4. Rates for business order processing and line charges were last increased in May of 2013. Staff recommends that the Commission accept Verizon's tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of October 17, 2017.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
No
Okay, no questions. If not, do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the tariff provisions for filing with an effective date of October 17th, 2017.
Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, item number 2, is Eagle Creek Rusyns Hydro LLC filed an application for certification as a renewable energy facility for the Maryland Renewable Energy Portfolio Standard Program.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chairman Michael Dean on behalf of staff. Item 2 is an application filed by Eagle Creek Rusyns Hydro LLC seeking certification as a renewable energy facility under the State Renewable Energy Portfolio Standard. Under COMOR 20.61.02, a facility seeking to obtain renewable energy credits must first be certified by demonstrating that it generates electricity using either a Tier 1 or Tier 2 resource as defined in COMOR, in Public Utilities Section 7-701, substantially complies with state environmental requirements, and is located in an area eligible to generate credits. The application is for a 12.5 megawatt hydroelectric facility in Lynchburg, Virginia, which qualifies as a Tier 1 facility in an eligible location. Staff recommends that the Commission approve the application and issue a Renewable Energy Facility ID certification number as specified in the staff comments. The application must establish a renewable energy credit account with PJM GATS within 30 days of certification. If the information on which the application is based should change, the applicant should be directed to file a notice with the Commission within 30 days of the change.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Quick question before I make a comment, just to verify. The location of this renewable energy facility is?
The application says it's located in Lynchburg, Virginia.
Lynchburg, Virginia. Thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, I wanted to ask that question to give me an opportunity to offer an opinion on this. I think my own opinion is we should approve this. However, it highlights a problem with these types of facilities. 75% of these applications are approved and the RECs go out of state. They do not develop the renewable energy infrastructure in the state. Therefore, they do not create the jobs and provide the economic development that the citizens of Maryland deserve for paying these premiums. They do not create the supply chains that we should be developing in this state in the renewable energy area as a kind of a benefit, a public benefit for paying these premiums. They do not develop the secondary and tertiary economies that such a supply chain would develop. And If it were reversed and 75% of these wrecks were staying in the state of Maryland and 25% would be going out, it'd be understandable to be a good benefit for the citizens of Maryland because we'd be realizing those benefits. But in my opinion, Mr. Chairman, we're not doing that, and that's under a 25% renewable portfolio standard. Others want to double that to 50% in the near future, and that will exacerbate this problem. And so I'm going to move to approve this, but I had to say that for the record.
All right, thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell. And for the record, I'll note that this plant actually went into operation in July of 2017, where many of the hydroelectric plants we approved were built in the 1910s and 1920s, so maybe that's an improvement. All right, any other comments, questions? All right, if not, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move for item number 2, the Commission approve the application and issue a renewable energy facility certification number, that we further direct the company to establish a REC account with PJM GATS within 30 days of notification, and lastly, direct the company to file notice with the Commission within 30 days of any change to the information in the application.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next item on the agenda, item number 3, is Chesapeake Utilities Corporation filed notification of its intent to issue up to $100 million of unsecured long-term debt securities and $200 million in shares of common stock.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman,
Good morning.
Commissioners. Annette Garofalo on behalf of Commission staff. This item was on the most recent administrative meeting. Staff recommended that the transaction be noted due to the size of the company and the fact that it had been approved in Pennsylvania. There were some questions about the how the funds from this borrowing would be used, and staff received some information from the company. We've written confidential comments regarding those, and I think also the attorney for the company is here today.
All right, thank you, Ms. Garofalo. First, let's go for questions for staff. Any questions? All right, not any questions for the company?
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So I wanted to thank Mr. Quinn for his responsiveness to the request for information on this item. The information we had with regard to where these proceeds would be used and what type of projects they would fund in the out years was not really apparent to us. We had some indication that some of it would be utilized for conversion from propane to natural gas, but that's really a small preponderance of these proceeds. The vast majority will fund major capital projects, including a pipeline that is not included in this proceeding, but is being entertained at another regulatory body, FERC, right now. And the statute, as it's constructed in Maryland in this area, directs us essentially to grant the waiver or to note the filing and not approve the transaction, but to note the filing. That's unfortunate in this case, in my opinion, and may cry out for a legislative remedy, because all things considered, had not Delaware already approved this, and it was here first before us, I'm not sure that some of us would be supportive of it. I don't think some of us have much choice at this point because of the way the statute is constructed. But we are in contested proceedings in another issue regarding the cost allocation that these proceeds will fund. And although there's not a direct nexus between the two, there is certainly an indirect one, because this is where the money's going to come from to fund that project. So I had to say that. It's why I held it up. I wanted to get more information on it. I appreciate the company being forthcoming, but maybe we ought to consider a legislative remedy that adds a third caveat to that section of the code that grants this kind of proceeding to note the transaction that says if the commission determines it's not in the public interest, that it need not be approved. That's all I have to say. I'll support the motion, though.
All right, thank you. Any Other questions?
I would just add that I think that Commissioner O'Donnell makes a good point, and in some cases I wonder why we even get some of these filings when there's an exception or an exemption from commission action to begin with, and this is one that we see from time to time about these loans. Either they fall below a certain threshold, or approved in another place, or what. Reading here what the other exemption is, as to why this is just then not routinely dispensed with, and why it even comes to our attention. I mean, do you have an answer for that? I mean, what is the point of even taking these up if we don't have any real opportunity to make a statement or to put a hold on it, pending other issues? In this case, our filing with FERC.
The statute does require prior notification to the commission, and the noting of the filing is something that is, you could call it an exception. Some of these transactions are from companies. They're large telco companies where they're being filed throughout the country, but Chesapeake Utilities Corporation has a public service company that is active in Maryland, and I think it would be probably, no matter how you decided to change the statute, you'd want Chesapeake Utilities coming to you.
All right, well, I appreciate the answer.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, for item number 3, I move we note the filing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next item number 4, is GTT Americas LLC, Transbank Inc., filed a joint application for approval to transfer control of TransBeam to GTT Americas.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Kenneth Albert on behalf of staff. This item addresses a filing by GTT Americas, call them GTTA, and TransBeam Inc. that asks the Commission for approval for the transfer of control of TransBeam to GTTA and its direct parent, GT Communications, which I'll refer to as GT Parent. TransBeam is a telecommunications carrier in Maryland. As part of the transaction, GTTA will acquire all the corporate stock of TransBeam. As a result, TransBeam will become a direct, wholly owned subsidiary of GTTA, and they'll also become an indirect, wholly owned subsidiary of GT Parent. Commission approval is required under PUA Section 6101 of the Public Utilities Article because the acquisition here involves a public service company acquiring capital stock of another public service company that operates in Maryland and is of the same class. The applicants assert that the acquisition is in the public interest because it will allow TransBeam to use the financial, technical, and managerial resources of GTTA. Staff believes the applicants have demonstrated that there is a public interest. This is serving the public interest. Therefore, staff recommends that the Commission approve the transfer of ownership of TransBeam to GTTA.
Thank you. Questions for staff? If not, do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I move that we approve the transfer of ownership of TransBeam Incorporated to GTT Americas LLC.
Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next item number 5, is Our Energy Manager LLC, filed an application for a license to supply electricity or electric generation services in Maryland.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Kenneth Albert on behalf of staff. This item addressed a request by a company named Our Energy Manager, I'll call them OEM, for Commission authorization to operate as an electricity broker for commercial and industrial customers in the service areas of all utilities in which suppliers can operate in Maryland. OEM's management have substantial experience in the energy industry. They currently provide electricity service in Illinois and New Jersey. No complaints were filed against them in either state. Staff reviewed their training materials and website and found it satisfactory. Therefore, staff recommends that the Commission authorize OEM to operate as an electricity broker with the conditions recommended by staff.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? If not, do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move we grant the company a license to operate as an electricity supplier in Maryland, limited to broker services for the customer classes and service territories applied for and recommended by staff, and direct the company to file notice with the Commission within 30 days of any changes to the information in the application.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I think we can take the next two items collectively together.
Okay.
Items numbers 6 and 7 are filings from American Power and Gas of Maryland, LLC. Item 6 being an application for a license to supply natural gas, and item 7 being an application for a license to supply electricity in Maryland.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Kenneth Albert again for staff. This item addresses by American Power and Gas, we'll call them APG, for commission authorization to operate as an electricity and natural gas supplier for all customer classes in the service areas of all utilities where suppliers can operate. APG's management has substantial experience in the energy industry. They currently provide electricity and gas service in New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Ohio, and Illinois. No complaints were filed against them in Ohio. There were complaints against them in the other states, but these were represented less than 0.5% of their total customers. There were also complaints filed at the Better Business Bureau, and these were mostly related to the price spike, which we saw during the polar vortex in 2014. We spoke to the company, and they told us that they have instituted hedging policies to reduce the risk of price spikes like they experienced because of the polar vortex. Staff recommends that the Commission authorize APG to operate as an electricity and gas supplier with the conditions recommended by staff.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? If not, do we have any motion?
Mr. Chairman, for items number 6 and 7, I move the Commission grant the company a license to operate as a natural gas supplier and grant the company a license to operate as an electricity supplier in Maryland for the customer classes and service territories applied for and recommended by staff. To direct the company to provide marketing and training materials specific to its Maryland operations to the Commission staff and the Office of People's Counsel 30 days prior to utilization of the materials in Maryland. And lastly, direct the company to file notice with the Commission within 30 days of any changes to the information in the applications.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, last item on the agenda today, item number 8, is PSEG Keys Energy Center LLC filed a motion to amend certain conditions of its CPCN. It's case number 9297.
Michael Dean again on behalf of staff. Item A is a filing by PSCG Keys Energy Center LLC requesting authority to amend certain conditions of its certificate of public convenience and necessity to construct a 735 megawatt combined cycle natural gas fueled electric generating facility located in Prince George's County under Public Utilities Section 7-207. The Commission, by an order in 2014, issued a certificate of public convenience and necessity to PSEG Keys Energy Center for the construction of a generating facility which had several conditions related to protecting the environment through the monitoring and control of air emissions. Under Section 7-205, a modification may not be performed to a generating station without prior approval of the Commission, and the modification is defined to include physical alterations, changes to the facility, and changes in fuel that could result in a change of air emissions from the plant or from a generating unit of the plant. However, a modification does not include a change that the Commission determines will not result in an increase in air emissions from the plant or a generating unit of the plant. The following describes changes to the facility which would require changes to the conditions to the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity, such as the reduction in size of a fire pump from 300 to 275 horsepower, an alteration in the definition of startup as reaching a steady state operation, and changes in annual emissions limits due to the transfer of ownership of part of the switchyard to Potomac Electric Power Company, which included an auxiliary generator and fuel tank, as well as some design configuration changes to certain specified heights and location of site facilities, and the listed name of the owner of the generating facility to PSEG Keys Energy Center. Lastly, there is also a change in emissions modeling for the PM 2.5 as Prince George's County has improved from being a designated as a non-attainment to now an attainment county. The Power Plant Research Program of the Department of Natural Resources and the Maryland Department of the Environment, Air, and Radiation Management Administration has reviewed the request and, as discussed in their filing of September 12, 2017, mail log number 216830, has determined that the proposed changes to the conditions do not increase air emissions, have acceptable effects on air quality, and represent definitional changes that are minor in nature. The letter states that the PPRP and ARMA recommend that the changes as proposed in the PSEG Keys Energy Center submittal be approved by the Commission. This item was previously considered during the September 17 administrative meeting, and the Commission requested additional information regarding 1, the acceptance by Joint Base Andrews regarding the change in location of structures at the PSEG Keys Energy Center, and 2, information from the Power Plant Research Program and Maryland Department of the Environment regarding whether a public comment hearing is required under the Clean Air Act, similar to that held for a different project. In response, PSEG Keys Energy Center filed a letter on October 4, 2017, mail log number 217219, with a map showing the location of the specified heights and location changes at the facility, and showing that they do not fall within the microwave line of sight communications path. And a letter was also filed on October 4, 2017 by the Power Plant Research Program and Maryland Department of the Environment, Air and Radiation Management Administration, mail log number 217226, which essentially noted that the changes in the PSEG Keys Energy Center result in no increase in air emissions and thus do not constitute a modification which would require a public hearing to obtain comments from the public, but that a filing in case number 9318 by Cove Point involved an explicit request to increase air emissions due to the analysis of leaking pipe components, which therefore, as explained in the letter, constituted a modification under the regulations and thus required a hearing. Staff has reviewed all these filings and recommends that the Commission approve to amend certain conditions of the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity as proposed by the Power Plant Research Program and Maryland Department of the Environment in the response to the initial filing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dean. Any questions for staff?
Comment.
Okay, if not, the issues before us, Commissioner O'Donnell.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to thank the Commission for the indulgence and the information provided by staff and the Attorney General's Office and PPRP regarding the questions that I had at our last AM. And they just were asked in order that I have a fuller understanding of the consistencies needed for these type of modifications when they involve these types of facilities. I'm satisfied the information was adequate, and I appreciate it. I have a small request for the OAG office, the officials that signed the October 4th filing with us, if they could simply in the future, and this is just a request, include their titles so that we know what position they have in those two programs, it would be helpful. Thank you, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right. Any additional comments? If not, do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, for item number 8, I move we approve the amendments to certain conditions of the CPCN as proposed by PSEG Keys Energy Center, LLC, in its July 24, 2017 filing and recommended by the Power Plant Research Program and Maryland Department of Environment in their responses dated September 12, 2017 and October 4, 2017.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, thanks, everyone. We are adjourned.